Hello, I'm Sunny. I am an actor on General Hospital, and many people really love both me and our General Hospital drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved General Hospital. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The quiet halls of Port Charles are once again hiding secrets that threaten to destroy lives, and this time, every passing moment brings Drew Kane Quartermain closer to a truth that could change everything. For weeks, he has remained trapped inside his own body, unable to move or speak while the people around him believed his recovery had stalled beyond hope. But beneath that terrifying silence, something has finally begun to change. Willow Tate, already overwhelmed by fear and guilt, suddenly notices the smallest movement, a twitch in Drew's fingers, followed by subtle flexing in his hand. To anyone else, it might seem insignificant, but to Willow, it feels like the beginning of a nightmare, because that tiny movement means Drew is fighting his way back. The moment he can speak, every secret she has desperately tried to bury could come crashing into the open, exposing everything she has done and leaving her life in ruins. As panic tightens around her, Willow wastes no time sharing what she witnessed with Nina Reeves and Jack Brennan, her voice filled with unmistakable dread. She knows this isn't simply another hopeful sign in Drew's rehabilitation. To her, it is the countdown to disaster, because every inch of progress Drew makes brings him closer to revealing the truth about what happened to him. The walls that have protected Willow's lies are beginning to crack, and every conversation she has now is colored by the terrifying realization that time is slipping through her fingers. While everyone else may see hope blooming in Drew's recovery, Willow can only see the devastating consequences waiting at the finish line. What should be a miracle has instead become the greatest threat she has ever faced. At the same time, Drew's recovery raises far bigger questions than anyone expected. His future stretches far beyond simply learning to move again. His political career hangs in the balance. His complicated relationships remain shattered. His place within the Quartermain family has never been more uncertain. And even his romantic future seems completely unwritten. Every path before him is filled with conflict, unfinished business, and enemies who have no intention of welcoming him back with open arms. Yet before Drew can reclaim any part of his life, one mystery continues to trouble those who care enough to look deeper. Why has his recovery been so dramatically different from Jack Brennan's? That question begins to dominate conversations between Elizabeth Weber and Lucas Jones during a tense discussion this week. Lucas is nursing an awful hangover, but even through his exhaustion, he cannot ignore how strange the entire situation appears. Both Drew and Jack Brennan suffered devastating strokes while inside the very same house, yet somehow their recoveries have gone in completely opposite directions. Jack has already regained his strength and mobility after receiving treatment at Turning Woods, while Drew remains trapped in a locked-in state with almost no visible improvement. The contrast is simply too dramatic to dismiss as coincidence, and the more Elizabeth thinks about it, the more convinced she becomes that something isn't right. Her instincts tell her there is another explanation hidden beneath the surface, one nobody has fully considered. Elizabeth quietly voices the theory that refuses to leave her mind. Perhaps there is something inside Willow's home preventing Drew from improving. Maybe an unseen environmental factor or something far more deliberate has been interfering with his recovery all along. The idea sounds unbelievable, yet every fact seems to point in that direction. Jack recovered after leaving the house and receiving treatment elsewhere, while Drew has remained exactly where he collapsed. The longer Elizabeth considers the evidence, the harder it becomes to ignore the uncomfortable possibility that Drew's surroundings themselves are keeping him imprisoned. As the conversation continues, another troubling detail refuses to stay buried. Elizabeth realizes that Willow never arranged proper communication services for Drew despite his condition. For someone supposedly devoted to helping him recover, that omission feels deeply suspicious. Patients in Drew's situation often rely on specialized communication methods to reconnect with the outside world, yet Willow never made those arrangements. Piece by piece, the puzzle becomes harder to explain away, and Elizabeth can no longer convince herself that these are innocent oversights. Every unanswered question seems connected to another, forming a disturbing pattern that leaves her increasingly uneasy. Unable to shake her concerns, Elizabeth carries those unanswered questions directly to Willow's doorstep. She isn't arriving with accusations, but she desperately wants answers before the situation grows even more dangerous. Yet the moment she steps inside, she is completely caught off guard by what she sees. Standing there in the house is Jack Brennan himself, fully recovered and walking around without the devastating limitations that still imprison Drew. The sight only reinforces everything Elizabeth has been fearing. If Jack has recovered so dramatically while Drew continues to deteriorate, then something about this situation simply does not make medical sense. Rather than calming her suspicions, the encounter convinces Elizabeth that she cannot walk away from this mystery. With Elizabeth refusing to let the matter rest, Drew's long-awaited recovery appears ready to begin at precisely the wrong moment for Willow. At the same time, unsettling summer spoilers hint that something bizarre is about to unfold. One shocking clue reveals that Willow's beautiful hardwood floors will somehow be ruined during an unexpected incident. Another promises that Drew will make an enormous splash, while Kai Taylor becomes deeply unnerved by Drew suddenly regaining his mobility. Yet another spoiler teases a deeply disturbing event involving Drew that leads Kai and Trina Robinson to jump to an entirely wrong conclusion. Each preview seems disconnected on the surface, but together they paint the picture of a chaotic turning point that no one inside the house will soon forget. The explanation may already be unfolding before everyone's eyes. Willow has witnessed Drew's fingers twitching and his hand beginning to flex, signs that his body is slowly responding after weeks of frightening stillness. His recovery is unlikely to happen all at once, and he certainly won't regain precise control overnight. Instead, those first desperate movements may become wild, clumsy, and impossible to control. Perhaps he accidentally knocks over a glass of water, sending it crashing across the room. Maybe an expensive vase topples onto the hardwood floor, shattering into pieces as liquid spreads everywhere. Or perhaps, with Kai nearby, Drew violently knocks his entire meal tray onto the floor in a frantic attempt to attract someone's attention, creating the very disaster hinted at in the spoilers. Even without fully restored coordination, Drew could still generate enough movement to create complete chaos. Slapping his hand against nearby objects or pushing items off a table might be the only way he can communicate that he is aware of everything happening around him. The resulting mess could easily destroy Willow's cherished flooring while simultaneously forcing everyone in the room to acknowledge that Drew is no longer completely trapped. What begins as an accident could quickly become undeniable proof that his recovery has officially begun. The silence surrounding Drew's condition would finally be broken, not through words, but through a desperate physical cry for help that no one could possibly ignore. With Elizabeth already questioning everything she has witnessed, seeing Drew create such a disturbance would almost certainly push her into immediate action. Whether Kai or Elizabeth witnesses the incident first, the response would likely be the same. An ambulance would almost certainly be called, and Drew could finally be removed from the house that Elizabeth increasingly believes is preventing his recovery. She might strongly insist that he be transferred to General Hospital, or perhaps even back to Turning Woods, arguing that his treatment clearly needs to continue somewhere safer. Given Jack Brennan's rapid improvement after leaving the house, refusing that recommendation would make Willow appear incredibly suspicious, especially in the eyes of medical professionals. That possibility creates an impossible dilemma for Willow. She desperately needs Drew to remain exactly where he is for just a little while longer because every additional day buys her precious time. She still needs leverage powerful enough to silence him forever once he fully regains his voice. If Drew reaches a hospital before she secures that advantage, he could expose everything about the shooting, the fake stroke, and the horrifying locked-in condition she allegedly caused. For Willow, the clock is ticking louder than ever, and every sign of Drew's recovery brings her closer to a reckoning she may no longer be able to stop. The race against time only becomes more intense as Drew's strength slowly returns, because his recovery is no longer just about healing, it is about who will strike first. The moment Drew regains enough awareness to communicate, he will undoubtedly want justice for everything that has been done to him. After spending weeks imprisoned inside his own body, fully conscious but unable to move or speak, his anger will have had plenty of time to grow into something far more dangerous. Every memory of Willow's betrayal, every moment of helplessness, and every second stolen from his life will fuel his determination to expose the truth. Yet just as Drew inches closer to reclaiming his voice, another battle is quietly unfolding elsewhere, one that could completely change the balance of power before he ever speaks a single word. Far away from Drew's bedside, Nina Reeves and Jack Brennan continue their search across the mysterious grounds of Windermere and Spoon Island, following clues that may finally lead them to Jack's missing black box. That seemingly ordinary object could become the single most valuable piece of evidence in Port Charles, because hidden inside is proof that Drew himself committed campaign finance fraud. The irony couldn't be more striking. While Drew prepares to accuse Willow of the crimes committed against him, another devastating secret waits to destroy his own future. Willow understands exactly how valuable that evidence is, because if she can get her hands on it before Drew recovers completely, she will possess the one thing powerful enough to keep him silent. The truth may finally be within Drew's reach, but so is the possibility of losing everything he has left. As Drew continues recovering, whether at General Hospital or back at Turning Woods, the atmosphere surrounding his hospital room is likely to become unbearably tense. Every visitor walking through the door could determine the outcome of this dangerous game. It is easy to imagine the dramatic moment unfolding with perfect cinematic timing. Drew struggles to form his first words after weeks of silence, preparing to tell Elizabeth, or perhaps even the police, that Willow shot him, orchestrated the fake stroke, and left him trapped inside his own body. His voice finally begins to return, and the truth stands only seconds away from exploding into the open. Then, just as those life-changing words are about to leave his lips, Nina and Willow burst into the room carrying the black box evidence that threatens to destroy him instead. In that breathtaking instant, Drew finds himself facing an impossible decision. He can reveal Willow's crimes and finally seek justice for everything she has done, but doing so may also trigger investigators to uncover his own financial fraud. Instead of watching Willow go to prison, Drew could find himself wearing handcuffs right beside her. The satisfaction of exposing her betrayal suddenly comes with an unbearable price. Forced into a corner, Drew may have no choice but to swallow his anger and remain silent, allowing Willow to walk away while protecting himself from an entirely different scandal. It is the kind of cruel twist that General Hospital thrives on, where victory comes at such an enormous personal cost that it hardly feels like winning at all. What makes this conflict even more fascinating is that the audience's sympathies are far from simple. Although Willow's actions have pushed her into morally dangerous territory, Drew is hardly viewed as an innocent victim deserving universal support. His manipulative behavior and toxic choices have earned him plenty of enemies throughout Port Charles. Many viewers may understand why Willow became so desperate, even if they cannot excuse what she ultimately did. That complicated emotional balance creates a storyline where neither side can claim the moral high ground, leaving everyone involved damaged by their own decisions. Instead of a traditional hero and villain, this becomes a collision between deeply flawed people whose mistakes continue pulling them toward disaster. Assuming Drew ultimately regains his health, another enormous question immediately rises to the surface. What kind of future will he return to once his recovery is complete? The political career he fought so hard to build now appears to be hanging by the thinnest of threads. Even if his physical rehabilitation succeeds, reclaiming his congressional seat seems increasingly unlikely. Willow now has support from powerful forces within the WSB, whose influence in Washington could easily shift the political landscape in unexpected ways. At the same time, the growing controversies involving Curtis Ashford and Jordan Ashford could reshape the entire political environment, potentially forcing Willow herself out of office before long. Yet even if that happens, Drew's own campaign finance scandal still looms over him like a storm cloud waiting to break. With evidence of Drew's financial misconduct potentially ready to surface at any moment, returning to Congress could become impossible regardless of his recovery. Instead, his attention may turn toward another battlefield where he has unfinished business: Aurora Media. Summer spoilers already tease a major corporate shakeup that prompts Michael Corinthos to take decisive action, and that development could open an entirely new opportunity for Drew. His ambition has never disappeared, and losing his political career would almost certainly push him toward reclaiming influence somewhere else. Aurora remains deeply personal to him, making it the perfect place for another high-stakes power struggle. If Drew cannot rebuild his future through politics, then business may become the arena where he attempts to restore everything he has lost. Curtis Ashford's legal troubles only make that possibility even more believable. His violent confrontation with Isaiah, the resulting arrest, and the felony charges now threatening prison time have left his future as Aurora's CEO hanging in the balance. Michael previously awarded Curtis a lucrative 5-year contract, a decision that deeply frustrated Drew from the very beginning. But executive agreements often contain strict morality clauses designed to protect a company's public image. If Curtis is ultimately convicted or even remains entangled in serious criminal proceedings, Aurora could have legal grounds to void his contract altogether. Suddenly, the executive chair that once seemed permanently occupied may become vacant once again. That possibility sets the stage for another explosive confrontation between Drew and Michael. Their relationship has deteriorated into outright hostility, and neither man is willing to surrender control without a fight. If Curtis is forced aside, Drew could aggressively campaign to reclaim the CEO position he believes should have been his all along. Michael, however, is unlikely to hand over that power willingly, especially given everything that has happened between them. The boardroom may soon become just as dangerous as any hospital room or courtroom, with corporate alliances shifting as rapidly as personal loyalties. Drew's recovery may restore his body, but it will also reignite every rivalry he left behind. While Drew wrestles with his professional future, dramatic changes are also coming within his own family. Scout is about to return to Port Charles after experiencing rapid aging syndrome, reappearing not as the little girl everyone remembers, but as a teenager navigating an entirely different stage of life. Although her exact debut date has not yet been announced, she is expected to join the younger generation alongside Danny Morgan, Rocco Falconeri, and Charlotte Cassadine. That transformation instantly changes Drew's role as a father. Instead of caring for a young child, he will suddenly find himself trying to understand an independent teenager filled with emotions, opinions, and the inevitable struggles that come with growing up. The adjustment promises to be every bit as challenging as his physical rehabilitation. Summer spoilers also hint that Danny will attempt to take the high road with Drew after Jason Morgan finally returns to Port Charles. That simple statement carries enormous emotional weight because Jason's homecoming has the potential to reopen old wounds while also creating opportunities for healing. As Scout settles into her new teenage life, she is almost certain to insist on spending time with her brother Danny, placing Drew in situations he can no longer avoid. Family obligations will force conversations that neither Drew nor Jason has been eager to have. The resentment between the brothers has lingered for years, but Danny and Scout may ultimately become the reason they finally attempt to build a healthier relationship. This would not be the first time family has pushed Jason and Drew toward reconciliation, but the circumstances have changed dramatically. In the past, Sam McCall served as the emotional bridge between them. Now, that responsibility may shift to the next generation. Danny and Scout deserve stability after everything they have endured, and both brothers know it. If Drew truly wants to move forward after his recovery, learning to coexist with Jason may become one of the most important challenges he faces. It won't erase years of pain overnight, but it could finally open a path toward peace that once seemed impossible. Of course, rebuilding his life would not be complete without addressing one final question. Who will stand beside Drew once all the dust settles? Eventually, every soap opera hero, no matter how controversial, finds himself searching for love again. Cameron Matheson remains one of the show's biggest stars, making it difficult to imagine Drew staying single forever. Yet when looking at his past relationships, the options appear remarkably limited. Nina despises him after everything they have endured together. Carly Spencer has no reason to welcome him back into her life, and Willow's betrayal has destroyed any remaining trust between them. Even Elizabeth, despite genuinely wanting to help Drew recover, appears emotionally fulfilled elsewhere and has little reason to revisit a romantic connection. Adding to that complication is Dante Falconeri, whose growing interest in Elizabeth leaves virtually no room for Drew in her future. Liz may continue supporting him as a compassionate nurse and loyal friend, but romance seems completely off the table. Drew will almost certainly have to look somewhere entirely new if he hopes to rebuild that part of his life. According to behind-the-scenes leaks, one intriguing possibility is Serena Baldwin, who is expected to return to Port Charles in a recast portrayed by Kelly Kruger. If those reports prove accurate, Serena could become the fresh start Drew desperately needs after so many broken relationships and painful betrayals. Should Serena not become his next great romance, another surprising possibility waits in the wings. Drew could eventually find himself involved with Britt Westbourne, another deeply polarizing figure who has never enjoyed widespread acceptance in Port Charles. That pairing would become even more dramatic if Jason's major life changes upon returning include finally walking away from Britt. In a twist that longtime viewers would immediately recognize, Drew would once again find himself romantically involved with a woman who previously shared a connection with his own brother. After Sam McCall, Elizabeth, and Carly, Britt would make yet another chapter in that strangely familiar pattern. And if none of those possibilities ultimately come to pass, General Hospital could always introduce an entirely new woman capable of turning Drew's chaotic post-recovery life in an unexpected direction. Whatever happens next, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Drew Kane Quartermain's recovery is not the end of his story. It is only the beginning of a brand new chapter filled with revenge, redemption, fractured family bonds, fierce corporate battles, and life-changing choices that will send shockwaves through Port Charles for months to come.